Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Welcome to the last Tuesday in March, which also happens to be the last day of March. We're getting ready to transition into April, and for those of you who are believers, Easter is coming up this Sunday. Do you all still wear your good Easter clothes on Easter Sunday? Did you get you a new suit or a new dress? Are you just bringing back one of the classics for spring? So, in this series, we have been focusing on the characteristics of leadership that women have that allow them to be phenomenal leaders. And we have talked about hope and accountability, finding your voice, justice, and I've shared some stories of women that I just have found inspiring in this journey. I want to close out this month by paying homage to the woman whom after I'm named, Dolores Del Tarver, the original Big D, the original DDT, who started this journey for me in my life by adopting me as a baby and went on to shape me in a lot of different ways and implant a lot of things that have been very important to me in my journey of becoming a woman, including faith, and also giving back, service, and also being people that are accountable, that you strive to be the best version of yourself that you could be. So I thought it fitting, not only to honor her on this last day of Women's History Month, but also to highlight one of my favorite characteristics of leadership, which is kindness. And I know for those of you that know me, you probably won't be surprised. But kindness to me is one of those things that everyone has the potential to be able to do, even if they haven't necessarily always grown up with it. It's something that you can learn later in life. It is something that doesn't have an expiration date. You can get those skills, and they can be very beneficial to you and also to the people around you. One of my favorite lines from the series Pose was delivered by Billy Porter. He played the character Pray Tell, and there was a funeral scene where Pray Tell is accompanying Blanca to the funeral of her birth mother. Now, Blanca has transitioned. She now is identifying as a woman. She was born biologically male. And y'all know that funerals are known for their potential to bring out the best and the worst of people, particularly those experiencing grief. And Blanca was already hesitant about going back for this funeral because she already had some contentious relationships, particularly one with her brother, who and even in the scene was spewing just hurtful things toward her about her gender identity and sexual orientation. And Pray Tell steps up to the brother and tells him that kindness cost him nothing, which I wholeheartedly agree with. So here we are, and I want to highlight, as I've been doing this month, highlighting leaders who I feel like have mastered it. So I found these adorable sisters who have created kindness as their platform. So Shreya and Isha formed Nest for Us, and the letters in Nest, N-E-S-T, stand for Newer Environment Starts Today. And the mission of Nest is to work with communities to provide volunteer and leadership opportunities to make the world better through kindness. And they have collected food, they've helped tutor children, they provided technology workshops for senior citizens, they have navigated the needs of individuals who are unhoused, they have given over 350 hours of volunteer time as a part of their organization. But even before then, the oldest, Shreya, had already given 850 hours. By the time she started in fifth grade and had given all these hours before they began this company, her and her sister. And she inspired her sister and continues to inspire others by providing much needed services to seniors, to young people, to people who are unhoused. So kudos to these ladies who are absolutely making good on their rent for their the joy of being here is that we get to do service, and so they are making good on those rent payments by ensuring that they're doing that. So, a lot of people will ask me why kindness is important. And I feel like kindness is one of those things that really is underrated. Kindness is something that to me is a superpower, and it's a very strategic one because when you are faced with the challenges that life brings, it is very, very easy to be unkind. When people around you are unkind, it can be easy for you to fall into that pattern. It can be very easy to become bitter, to feel as if life has not handed you a great playing hand, and to feel like your family that you were born into was not loving, and to be able to come out of that and still want to exhibit behaviors of kindness that others have not exhibited towards you. It's hard not to become resentful, not to become hardened over time, not to become numb. I think we see so many examples of people just being rude and not treating people well. So one of my things that is very important to me, well, there's two. If anybody knows me, it's one is that I really care about getting people's names correctly because names matter. So anytime I meet people and they tell me their name, I'll try to get a little bit of information. Now, that is not to say I'm going to remember that name later because my memory, we're struggling with that. Got some brain fog as I've hit this 50 milestone, but I really do try to be intentional about ensuring that I'm spelling people's names correctly, that I'm pronouncing people's names correctly, that when I ask people what they like to be called and they say, well, you can call me whatever you want, I absolutely tell them, no, I can't because names matter. So, what would you like me to call you? And try to honor that. It's also very, very important for me to acknowledge people. So I will greet people when I enter a space. I will greet people when I send a text message, when I send an email. And it does not matter what it is. It can be somebody who is providing a service to me. I'm going to greet them, and I'm going to greet them with the joy of the Lord because they deserve that. We all deserve to be acknowledged, and we all deserve to be treated with kindness, and to know that it is a choice for you to show up. So thank you so much for showing up and doing the things that you do. Kindness is considered one of those soft skills, if you will. And I think sometimes it's misunderstood as weakness. So, what ends up happening is when we're in these spaces where there's a lot of competition, where people feel as if when someone else gets something, then they're not going to be able to get something. So, this if kind of, I would say, competition mindset, but also this where these opposites can't exist together. So we can't both get things. One of us has to be victorious. One of us has to be the winner. One of us has to have that final word, that final say. One of us has to be able to come out as the leader. One of us has to be the person who people look to as the expert. It creates all of these hierarchies, and unfortunately, in these hierarchies, it interferes with people being able to fully, one, feel safe, but two, be able to perform adequately, to be able to grow, to be able to show the best possible versions of themselves because it becomes about power. And unfortunately, people are in situations where they're now feeling as if they're underpowered or disempowered because they're in situations where people are telling them to be tough. You get over it. Stop being weak. You don't let anybody see you struggling. Never let them see you sweat. There are going to be challenges in life, so you need to buck it up, right? And I do feel like, again, this is a situation where multiple things can be true. There are times where, despite how we're feeling, we have to deal with some very difficult things. We have to make tough decisions. We have to be able to navigate through. But that does not mean that kindness is any less important. And it does not mean that we can't be kind even in the hard moments. And kindness isn't about you being liked. It's not about you trying to get kudos from other people or affirmation from other people. It is not you using it as a skill to try to get people's guard down so then you can come in and go for the kill. But it really is an opportunity for us to acknowledge the importance of people that we're around, that we're investing in them, that we want to see them perform. Part of those programs that we just talked about with our two young scholars is that they were investing in mentorship hours. They were doing tutoring. They were making sure that young people had the skills they need, but also that our seasoned saints had the ability to be able to be technology savvy in this world. It is very challenging when you don't know how to use a computer because there's so many things that they'll tell you to get online and do. And so those kind of things really show that kindness is not necessarily convenient all the time. Kindness does mean you're going out of your way. Kindness doesn't mean that you're being passive. Kindness does mean you're being assertive, that you're being intentional. And it also allows for tough conversations because you have created a space for people to feel as if they can show up, right? So, number one, what does kindness do? It creates safe spaces. And it's important for us to have safe spaces to be able to grow and learn and be effective. Because when you don't feel like your space is safe, when you feel like you're in competition or people are in competition with you, you may not be in competition at all, or you feel like you're being judged and criticized constantly, and that your ideas aren't considered, or that somebody else will take credit for your ideas, that you may have wonderful things to say, but sometimes people can take over a takeover spirit about them. They're taking over meetings, they're over talking everyone, and sometimes what people confuse with intelligence is loudness. So you're loud, and you're boisterous, and you're taking over and you're over talking, and so people will think, oh, well, this is the expert in the room, and that's not necessarily the case. You just might be a know-it-all, or you might think you know it all, and don't actually know all of the things that you think you do. As one of my former church members used to say, arrogate. You have the characteristics as if you could be arrogant, thinking that you excel in all these areas, but really the deficit is there. That's just a facade, and it's important for leaders to be able to shift that environment, to create climates that are comfortable and that allow people to be able to step forward. That quiet person in the room could have some of the best ideas, but if they don't feel like there is a space, and nobody wants to feel like they're double dutching, I gotta wait till I can jump in order to have my turn. When the leader creates a kind environment, then people get a chance to speak in ways that work for them. All of us are different. It's not that one is better than the other. They're just different. And so when we're in spaces, we want to make sure that people have the capacity to be able to find their voice. We talked about that as one of the characteristics of leadership, so that when you allow people to be able to find their voice, when you find your voice as a leader, it makes a significant difference. And so kindness is really important in those spaces. I will tell you that one of my friends said, you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat you when they don't need you. And to me, that's how kindness is. Kindness is, let me see how you engage when there's pressure, when there's nobody watching, when there's nothing you can benefit from the situation, but simply you're just showing up. Are you going to show up and be kind? When there's not a camera on you, when there's not an evaluation that's to be had, but to be able to navigate still being kind when the pressure is high, but the reward may be low. And it's important for us to be able to navigate these kindness skills, if you will, so that when we're under pressure, we're still able to utilize them. But also, when you're in high pressure moments, you've been in stressful meetings, you've been in tenuous situations. It might have been a funeral, it might have been, we're in election season, it might have been a board meeting, a committee meeting, and things got escalated, and how kindness can really come into a highly charged environment and stabilize people under pressure, to be able to help navigate without tearing people down. Kindness is also a form of accountability, because in order to be kind, to be consistent, not the just blanket, you know how you speak to everybody and don't call their name because you don't really remember their names. You don't want to. Sometimes we don't care to remember people's names, and so you just hi, hi, beautiful, hi, go, all of these things to make it seem like we have this relationship, this pseudo relationship, if you will, that's closer than it is, and we'll mistake that from kindness when it's really just politics that people are utilizing. But when you truly are kind, when you know something about a person, when you're checking in with them, that takes precision. That means that you have done your research, that you've taken the time, that this investment was a real investment for you to follow up because it was important to you, that this person shared something about themselves that stuck with you and you want to follow up with them in a very sincere way. I think kindness is also a form of resiliency because when you go through as much as we can go through in life, and again, to stop from being bitter and jaded and critical, to stop from being hopeless, to stop, to get out of these spaces of lack of empathy, or just the, like I said, the numbness that comes along, to be able to not fall down into that rabbit hole with all of the examples, especially if you're on social media. You know that people are keyboard gangsters on social media, and they will say some hurtful, ugly, negative things. People will drag you all over the place. People will take a moment that was a mistake and they will highlight it, and that is all they will ever see. To get to a point where you're not apathetic and don't care about people is absolutely resilience at its peak. And I do feel like people who are able to be kind in all of the different dynamics that are going on, to be able to be steadfast in that, is something that suggests that this person is a high performing individual, because they're going to continue to be themselves, and they're going to continue to do this good work of the kingdom, and they're going to continue to show up in the ways that honor who they are and their values, and their purpose, even though around them it would very much be easy to engage in a different type of leadership style, because those are often the types of leadership styles that are associated with productivity. And so we get in the habit of people being productive and not really looking at the person. We start looking at money, instead of the material of the heart. Then we start getting into those situations where kindness is less valued. But it's important to understand how to be able to include kindness in your everyday. And that, again, to recognize people, to see people is an important part of that. And this speaks to building that climate, this healthy climate that allows this fostering of growth and development, to create that, to get leaders to be effective leaders, to be able to see the manifestations of what work has been poured into people, to see the output in a way that's consistent, is to be able to acknowledge people. I, as a part of, honoring some of the relationships in my life, sent out cards just appreciating people, thanking them, letting them know that they matter. And if you've ever handwritten some cards, you know that takes some time. But it wasn't about that. It was about the investment, and they deserve it, right? So the respect piece that goes along with that is so very important. And oftentimes, when you listen to people, you're able to write about them. You're able to tell them things. You're able to show up and respect them because you understand them. You see them. You've gotten a chance to take some time to know who they are beyond their position. I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to create all of these very close friendships in your work environment or in your committees, but it is important to be able to have some compassion, some connectivity with people. It allows you to be held accountable, but it also allows them to hold you accountable. It still means that you have those good expectations, that you're communicating very clearly, that you have empathy for people, that you're able to give constructive feedback, and it's coming from that place of kindness. It also allows for forgiveness because mistakes are going to happen. We recognize that none of us are perfect. We're going to have challenges that go along with us serving in any capacity. And in those challenges, we need to recognize the importance of a good apology, and being able to take responsibility that speaks to accountability that we talked about earlier in this series. But it also speaks to the kind of environment that you're shaping in wherever you are, what kind of morale, what kind of standard you're setting. We talk a lot about the vision of organizations. What does their mission statement say? What if we were to define this organization in a few words, what would that look like? And so you want to make sure that one of those is that you're creating spaces that allow people to want to be loyal, that to want to show up, to be highly motivated, to be able to be one that's transparent and open, that people feel satisfied, and that they have bought into the mission and the goals. Because often what ends up happening is in these spaces, people aren't buying in to these things because they're not in environments that they want to be a part of, right? So you'll hear a lot of people talk about toxic workspaces and they don't want to be there. And so if you're not leading with kindness, then that is going to impact how people view whatever this is, this committee, this organization, this group. I do also think that it's really important for us to understand that kindness is something that leads to effectiveness in leadership. In order to be an effective leader, there has to be some balance. That balance between being holding other people accountable, you being held accountable, you being open and transparent, you having some compassion, you being able to point out the things that need to be addressed, you abiding by when you're doing your evaluations, that you're having objective criteria, that people are clear about what their roles and responsibilities are, that they see the modeling of your behavior, that this modeling, they're seeing it and they want to emulate what they're seeing because they recognize how effective it then becomes. When you know a genuinely kind person, you want to be around them. You want to learn from them. You want to be able, sometimes people will say, how can you do that? How can you have that smile? Despite all of the things that you've been through. And people will say, it is because of what I've been through that I smile, because they understand that it's important for us to have a variety of different experiences. They shape us. We can't just cherry pick the ones that we like the most and then exclude all of the others. Why do I know joy? Because I've known sadness. Why do I know happiness? Because I've known pain. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to recognize that sometimes things that appear like they would not fit, that they would be not helpful, not maybe in opposition to what we have been told are characteristics that we want to gain, is that we really think about what are the values that underscore this. I have never regretted an act of kindness. And even though sometimes people can be unappreciative or they may not value kindness in the same way, it didn't, I didn't have any regrets about it because it is who I choose to be and consistent with how I want to show up. And so when I'm doing that, that's where the validation comes from, because it's, hey, you're living a life according to the purpose that you've been given. And so there are going to be times when you have to be a little bit more stern, when you have to address things in ways that will allow people to understand that you're serious, and that there is not you're not going to accept anything less than what you deserve. You can still do that with the utmost respect, and still get what you need, and still be taken very seriously, and still be able to get this situation resolved without it turning into anything that escalates to some significant conflict. And I do not believe that conversations of disagreement are conflict, right? We can talk things out, they don't have to be conflictual. When it gets conflictual is when you are trying not to give people what they're doing, what they deserve, and you want them to be okay with that. And you're trying to get them to approve of those things. That's when we're going to have that conflict. But other than that, you very much can get what you need, encourage others, create safe spaces, hold accountability, show resilience, show efficacy, produce people who are outstanding leaders by simply remembering to be kind. All right. So, in addition to being well, make sure that you're kind. Take good care, and I'll see you all in April.